Everyone, Dr. Joe's in the house again on this rainy uh, Wednesday here in the Washington, D.C. area. Hope you're doing fine wherever you are. And so we're going to have another good session, I think, lined up. We're going to be talking about what to do with equity in your home and how can you maximize that such that hopefully you can build wealth and so on. So let's have a look. Let me get sure that Instagram is live. I think they're on live. So we are good to go. Okay. Yep, we're good. Okay. So another great session lined up today. We're going to talk about what to do with equity and how can you use that equity in your homes to tap into it and hopefully scale your business. The reason why I'm doing that is that I'm sure like you have properties that you acquired maybe recently or years ago, and hopefully, if you purchased in the right area, and there may be some equity in your home, then the question becomes: if you're on the growth phase of your real estate journey, i.e., you're building, you're looking to acquire more properties, you're trying to establish a portfolio, then one of the best ways to do that is to leverage or tap into some of the equity that you have in your home and to acquire more assets. And that's the strategy that I did when I first started out. I bought a home, and as time went by, we had some equity, and I tapped into and created, well, not created, but established a HELOC, home equity line of credit, and I was able to use the line of credit to acquire more properties. So one house allowed me to buy multiple houses. I would buy the homes, tap into the equity, renovate the homes to force appreciation, and then refinance. And once I did the refinance, I was able to, get some money back and then pay off or pay down my HELOC, and then it allowed me to do it again and again and again and again. So that's what I did. I was in the growth phase. I don't do so much of that this time round, but that's one of the things I used to do when I was starting out, and so on. So the question then becomes: I wanted to do a session on that today. Tap equity, cash out, and scale your portfolio. But I must put a caveat: debt is a double-edged sword. Double-edged sword, which means that you can use it to grow, but also if it's incorrectly used, it can crush you and it can wipe you out. And that's what a lot of people, don't realize about debt. So be careful. So I'll be kind of talking about strategies and limitations and so on. So, are you grinding through renovations only to feel stuck with your limited cash and slow growth? As always, I will be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you got some questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, and I'll get to them maybe in about, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes from now. So put some questions in the chat box. Hello, everyone from YouTube, from Instagram, and also from Facebook. We do this Wealth Wednesday every Wednesday, and to talk about different subjects about building financial independence through real estate investing. My name is Dr. Joe, and I've been doing this for about 35 plus years. I have a portfolio here in the Washington, D.C. area. And primarily, I buy houses, renovate houses, keep my houses for the long haul, and rent primarily to Section 8 tenants. Greatest program, I think, in the world. And that's what I do. And I share with you some tips, strategies, and, experiences based on this journey that I have. So anyway, if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box. If you want a more detailed one-on-one with me, you can book a one-on-one session. Go to my website, joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo.com. And you can book a one-on-one where we can go into more details about your specific situation, your problems, challenges, and so forth. So with that said and done, let's talk about tapping into equity, scaling your portfolio. Okay, as I mentioned before, sometimes it's a slow journey. If you don't have access to cash, and thousands of investors, force appreciation in their properties, through renovations, etc., but yet fail to unlock the real power hidden behind those improvements, i.e., tapped equity. You have equity, which is the difference between the value of the property subtract the debt that's left in the on the loan. So the truth is, untapped equity, it really is dead equity. It's nice. It looks good on a piece of paper. It just sits in a property doing nothing while inflation, opportunity cost, and market shifts eating your potential. So we're going to cover today. This live stream pulls back the curtains on how new, intermediate, and beginners or seasoned investors can strategically, and I mentioned the word strategically, use cash out refinancing to not only extract value, but also to scale faster and hopefully smarter. So we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly of this process through the lens of real investors. I'm going to give some examples and share some of my experiences. And you'll also learn what worked, what doesn't work, what's failed, and how to avoid common landmines on this journey. If you're serious about long-term success in residential real estate, this live stream really will equip you. I'm going to provide some actionable insights and lessons learned, which hopefully will help you. As usual, we'll break into 6 parts, and then we'll have a conclusion to wrap it up at the end. So let's get going with part 1, which is, why equity alone won't build wealth. Just equity alone is not going to build you wealth. I mean, it's good in terms of it's going to, increase your net worth, but in terms of building and growing your wealth, it may not. So it can, but it's, you want to fast track that. So the question is your hard-earned equity just sitting there quietly losing its value? Just sitting there, it looks good, but is it really, helping you? Is it helping? Is it making you grow? And is it growing your bottom line? So many investors hold equity in their properties with pride. I mean, you feel good, beat on your chest, believing that rising value signals progress. Rising appreciation of your properties, it can signal progress, but without converting to capital, the equity is essentially just dormant. It's just sitting there. Appreciation may increase your net worth on paper, but it really doesn't improve your cash flow, fund new investments, or help you build a bigger portfolio. Money just sitting in a house doesn't allow you to build a portfolio. Worse, equity tied up in a property represents opportunity cost. There's things that you could have done with that money, deals that you missed out, deals that you're not taking on, and potential growth that you're, deferring. So take the example, for example, of an investor. Let's just say that this person was from Baltimore, and they renovated the duplex, and they just sat on the increased appreciation for 2 years. So they bought the house, rehabbed it, it went up in value, and they rented it out, obviously, but that's all they did. Okay, so by the time he decided or she decided to refinance, rising interest rates, and the cooling market, slashed his available, sort of cash out proceeds. Okay, so he had equity, but the market changed and that equity went down a little bit. Meanwhile, let's just take another investor, investor 2 or investor B, in the same city. They acted swiftly. So after completing the renovations, they refinanced immediately. They extracted, let's say, $60,000 in, cash out refinance, which is tax-free cash out money, and they use that 60,000 to acquire another property, and did the same thing a couple of times over 2 years. Okay, so what they did, they tapped into the equity of the property rather than just sitting there doing nothing. They then use that equity then to acquire more properties and build a stronger portfolio over the same year and a half, 2 years period. So when left untouched, equity, it can go down in value due to inflation. There are opportunities that you're missing out, deals that go by because you feel that you pass up because you don't have the money. And so it does create the illusion of success, while the cash that you have in the property is kind of tied up. So I'm not saying that you should, take out all the money in the houses that you have. I'm just saying that you have some equity or potential there. You got some potential money that you could use to build and grow your portfolio. That's all I'm saying. Because many of us are short of money, And one way to tap into some extra money is through a line of credit or through refinancing. So, what are some of the action items associated with equity alone will not build you wealth? Conduct a regular, maybe a quarterly review of your properties, your holdings, and identify, where equities build up. Compare your untapped equity to your investment pipeline. So, what deals could you do if you had access to that money? And then maybe partner with a loan officer or some kind of mortgage broker to model your current loan to value and potential cash out scenarios. What kind of financing can they allow you to do? Is it going to be a home equity line of credit? Is it going to be a straight up second deed of trust? And so forth. Okay. So that's number one, which is all about why equity alone won't build wealth. And we'll go to number 2 of 6. And the topic here is the power and the pitfalls of cash out refinancing. It's not all rosy. If you're not careful, it can be a disaster. So the question, I'm going to address here is, what does it really take to make a cash out refinancing work in your favor? What does it really take to make these cash out refinances work in your favor? Okay, so cash out refinancing can be the linchpin of the BRRRR strategy. BRRRR is buy, renovate, rent, refinance. And so the idea is that you're going to refinance at some point to extract or pull money out of your property based on the appreciation that's taken place because you decided to improve the property. And then it allows you to recycle that money onto newer deals rather than having to wait before you get more cash and so on. So cash out refinancing can be the linchpin for the BRRRR strategy. But done right. This is the caveat. It accelerates your portfolio growth. It does. It can allow you to buy more properties over a short period of time. And so essentially you're recycling the same amount of cash. However, done wrong, this is the caveat. Done wrong, it introduces risk because you've taken out, new loans, higher mortgages, higher debt, more debt, and so you have an increase in balloon monthly payments. Your monthly payments have gone up probably, and if you're not careful, it could reach the point where it's unsustainable, which is not a good thing. And but knowing when and how to leverage, the the improvements that were done, it it kind of separates the disciplined investor from the gambler. Disciplined means that you're very organized, you're very structured, and you're not just going to buy anything anytime. So let's take another scenario. So consider a seasoned real estate investor in, let's just say, Atlanta, who carefully tracked a rental income. So they're tracking their income, they're also tracking their operating expenses. And and then the question becomes, what should they do over time if the value of the property increases? So number one, she pulled, let's say, 75,000 from the equity, and let's assume that they are able to get that at a fair interest rate, and they then use that money to acquire more properties. Okay, so they increase their holdings, and they're able to do quite well. So on the flip side, though, a novice investor who doesn't know what they're doing, they overestimate the ARV. They think it's going to be worth more than what it really is. They don't live in a property. They may be thinking that the market's still hot when it's kind of calmed down or cooled down. So they overestimate the ARV, and they fail to stabilize the rents. Especially if you're in a market, an apartment building. What you want to do is to stabilize the rent. So similar people pay the same amount of rent across the board. Yeah, so they failed to stabilize, and were shocked when the appraisal came in low. The result of that, what do you think happened? Fraction of the expected cash out was actually realized, and the cash flow, because they took on more debt, the cash flow situation was a little down, let's just say. So the success with cash out refinancing, it does require more than just optimism. It does require more than just crossing your fingers and hope for the best. It demands planning, conservative projections, and also an understanding of the loan terms and the conditions, and have the discipline if it doesn't make sense to walk away. It's always good to walk away from a bad deal. So cash out refinancing magnifies both potential return and also some risks associated with that. So the key is preparation and strategy. So what are some of the action items associated with the pitfalls and the power and the pitfalls of cash out refinancing? One is stress test your refinance scenario using conservative comparables and rates, interest rates. So, I mean, every so often the interest rates go up or down based on the market conditions. This is on the acquisition, also on the renovation. So, if there's going to be a refinance soon, then you need to get ready for that. So, what are some of the action items, associated with? I think I did the wrong one. It's supposed to be, what does it really take to make a cash out refinance work in your favor? So, what are some of the action items associated with the power and the pitfalls of cash out refinancing? Some of the things you can do is stress test your portfolio, your refinance scenario, by using conservative comps and also interest rates to determine how much you can borrow, how much they're going to borrow you, and what are the hoops that you're going to have to go through in order to get that money. The other thing you can do is to build a reserve fund before refinancing to offset any increased monthly obligations. So just set aside some money just in case the interest rates go up. It's not going to, take you out. You can still, perform. And also another action item is to speak to one or two people to compare cash out terms, especially on investment properties. Okay, so always be cautious, always be nervous. Don't always take people's, fate, as good value. So number three of six, mastering the appraisal game. Now this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where, if you're going to refinance, you're going to do it here or slightly before here. So the question, I suppose, is what? So I can get it up here. Yeah, what if the appraiser doesn't see what you want to see? I.e., you have an appraiser who just doesn't get it, an appraiser who didn't notice the improvements that you made, and therefore they limit how much they'll prepare to give you. And so in this scenario, we talked about the action items. What if the appraiser doesn't see see things the way you do? Appraisers are one of the most unpredictable parts of the cash out refinance process. You may, depending on how promising they are, sometimes you go into a property and it's still in a state of renovations. So you're going to have to work through to see if it makes sense to keep the existing, maintenance person or carpenter or contractor just to take care of some of the minor stuff, and before the major appraisal that's going to be done a bit later on. So that's a decision that you're going to have to make. So you may see granite countertops, vinyl planks flooring, a fully renovated kitchen. But if the appraiser isn't properly briefed, then none of all that could matter, and none of those improvements that you made may not transfer over to the new tenant. So so be careful and make sure that the inspector knows what improvements you made, and if you have some what's it called, newspapers or something to wrap cloth or something, just to let them know that you understand that you did some work, and it's your understanding that it's going to increase the value of the property. So yeah, so that's what's it called? The appraisal process. And if you don't manage that, if you rely solely on the good graces of the appraiser, um, it could be a problem. And I've learned that the hard way when I went to a property that I owned, and let's just say that the settlements were going to take place in the afternoon. We went there in the morning around midday, and the place was a mess. Anyway, it was something else. Anyway, um, so the appraisals can really throw you off. If the numbers that you are expecting aren't met, then it means that you're going to end up you're going to end up with a mortgage that's less than what you expected, which may mean that you're going to have to plug the difference. So what are the action items associated with this? Prepare an appraisal packet that includes before and after photographs, the scope of work, and cost breakdown. So this is, you're trying to educate the appraiser on the work that you did, because the appraiser doesn't know. And so your job is to educate them on the improvements that you've done, and hopefully you can get some credits for it. So you may want to consider including a one-page summary, provide some additional information about the neighborhood, the trends, and recent sales. And also you can, schedule a visit with the appraiser, so that way you can highlight certain things and certain improvements, certain things that makes this property unique, when they decide to come up. So kind of halfway through. And again, as usual, if you've got questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll get to them in about 10 minutes. If you want to book a one-on-one with me where we can do a deep dive into any aspect of real estate investing, residential real estate investing, then I'll be more than happy to share my thoughts with you. And so let's move on to number 4. Number 4 of 6 is timing of your refinances for maximum leverage. Timing your refinances for maximum leverage. So when is the best time to refinance? Or is there a best time to refinance? Is there a worse time? You don't know. But if you speak to seasoned people in your area, they'll probably give you a good idea. So refinancing isn't just a financial decision. It's a strategic one. It's not just financial, it's a strategic one. The timing of your refinance can dramatically impact how much equity you can extract from the property, and the terms that you receive from the financial institution on whether that's worthwhile to do that in your case. So it's a strategic one. The timing of your refinance can directly impact dramatically, I suppose, impact the how much equity you can extract for the terms and services that you receive. So yeah, that's a big unknown, is what's going to happen to the equity. Can I get credit for it? Is it going to be in my favor? And things like that. It can be, but you have to make sure you do it right. Yeah, so we're going to go through some economic trials and tribulations. And so you want to make sure that you have access to cash, which then allows you to survive a lot better than those people who are struggling. And I've seen people crash and burn when when we hit bad times. Okay, so keep going, and let's go to number 5. Yes, managing risk with strategic debt. So as I mentioned earlier on, you can use debt in both ways. One way is going to help you grow, and another way it can crush you because you're just taking on too much debt that you can't pay. So one of the most critical aspects of scaling, well, I suppose the question is, what's the question I'm going to address here, is how do successful investors like you and I use cash out refinancing without over leveraging themselves? So the question is, how can they do the refis and without damaging the property, having issues, and so on. So that's the question I'm going to answer now. So one of the most critical aspects of scaling your portfolio using cash out refinance is to manage the debt responsibly. I highlight that, manage the debt responsibly. What do I mean? Tap into equity offers fast access to capital, but also increases your liabilities. So you've got more space, more living space. So it's going to probably increase, uh, the square footage that you have for entertaining and so on. So tapping into equity. Why are we going to do that? It allows or offers fast what do I put? Yeah, it offers sort of a scaled approach to the portfolio. You can get to know local foods, and you can get to know some locals, and who knows, they may be able to show you a different perspective that you just didn't know, because most touristy places tend to focus on the bars, the beaches, the food, and not really where the real people tend to go. So, there is a downside to over leveraging. There is a downside to continuously add more debt to a property. So just be careful to avoid over leveraging. Avoid over leveraging. Because each refinance was modeled using conservative rent assumptions and debt service coverage ratios, the SCR. But in a capped market where they may not be so generous in terms of the rents, as a result of that, some investors just got out, or they focused on cash flow and reserves and appreciation. So, my friends, I think that's what we're going to talk about in terms of number 5, managing risk and strategic debt. What are some of the action items associated with that? Let's have a quick look. Set a personal loan to value ceiling that balances growth and cash flow safely. So, make sure you got a balance between appreciation and cash flow. I do suggest that you have 3 to 6 months of reserves set aside, because you don't know what's going to happen. And also use the SCR calculators to assess your profile before finalizing any new deal. And then finally, number 6, how to turn your equity into momentum. Turning your equity into momentum. What do I mean by that? So the question is, how do top investors, how do they deploy their equity so they can scale faster and also smarter? That's the question I'm throwing out there. For those people who are gung-ho on refinancing, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that you need to understand what you're doing. And there will be some refinance of the property. You're going to need to address that. And the most investors, which is that you and I, they sort of sit idle on their cash, or they parlay that into unreleased Naval Academy, or unreleased, new released, locations. Yeah. So instead of letting the cash sit idle or drift into unrelated expenses, they deploy it carefully on deals that make sense, which is going to increase their returns. So, if you have an investor who used $90,000, for example, from a refi to purchase a triplex or other properties, then I think that's a good thing. You're using the asset to acquire more properties or help you build them more properties. So I think that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with taking on debt, especially if you take debt on appreciating properties like real estate. But I don't think you should go gung ho and just buy anything anywhere and so on. So the key really is discipline. I typically invest in undervalued properties in good locations with proven rental demand, and just kept on going, kept on going, kept on going. And over time, you tap into that equity either through a HELOC or line of, or through a refinance, and it just allows you to purchase more properties over a shorter period of time. And the action items associated with that, build a reinvestment pipeline, kind of before you refinance and close. Prioritize deals with strong fundamentals and future appreciation. So buy in areas where the fundamentals are strong. People want to live there. The property is in decent condition. These are the basics. These are the fundamentals that you may want to consider. And you can also, if you want to, automate your financial tracking to monitor returns on redeployed equity. And then finally, on on the conclusion, I suppose, equity is just the beginning. It's at its core, equity is just stored value. It's just money sitting in your account, not doing anything. Okay, it's what you do with it that really is important, and it really what determines your path as a real estate investor. Some people have great joy just sitting into a checking account, earning 0.01% return on the money. And I certainly am not interested in that. It doesn't appeal to me. I'd rather go higher, maybe 8, 9%. And in those situations, then I'm trying to encourage private investors to fund a part of my transactions. So, all that I've talked about today is repeatable. And it's something I think you should consider immersing yourself in this, knowing what to do, what to buy, when to buy it, and making sure you understand the criteria associated with those financing. So with that said and done, my friends, if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box. I'm going to get to them in about a couple of minutes. And if you want to book, if you want to reach out to me, if you want to email me, you can send me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. And finally, if you want to book a one-on-one, where we can do a deep dive into any situation, any problems, any challenges you're experiencing, then you can book a one-on-one with me, and where I can hopefully share some of my experiences, leverage my 35 plus years experience to help you avoid making what I call unnecessary mistakes. So I think, my friend, that is it for today. It's a little shorter, but if you got some questions, let's put them in the chat box. I'm going to get to them shortly. And let's see what we got down here in the chat box. Okay, let's have a look. So let's have a look. Let's have a look. Nestor, I think, is the first one. Nestor, Section 8 has listed my property on the HUD website. Okay, so you're in a local housing authority, and they listed your property on the website. I still have not received any calls. I'm trying to stay patient. Okay, I think I recall last week you hadn't received any calls on your property. Sorry. And so there's a couple of things going on that I think you need to understand, Nestor. I don't know the details where you are. So let's have a look. You carry on and say that I'm getting non-voucher holders calling me from posts I made on Zillow and affordable housing website. Should I still give them a look? I want the Section 8 guaranteed money. Okay, so you got a property. You put it for listing on the Section 8 or the website, and you're getting calls just from market renters. You're not getting calls from Section 8. So a couple of things I would suggest that you consider, first of all, is make sure that the rent that you are requesting is within the range, the 30%, the 40% range for the tenants. So you want to do that, because otherwise your rent is too high. And so people are seeing your ad, they're not responding because the rent that you're asking is it's higher than what their values are. And that could explain why you're not getting any calls. Another one could be, your marketing is just not up to par. You're not getting good feedback. I'm assuming that you're advertising online and also some of the local platforms. But if no one's calling you, no one's requesting the visit, then it means that you've got something that is just not attractive to potential buyers. So I would sort of step back and do a deep dive, have someone stop by your property, look around, and give you their perspective on the property, and and so on. But yeah, Section 8 guaranteed income is definitely a good one. So you're saying I'm tired of evicting tenants and fixing up the property. My rental in is not in great area like yours, Joe. I know screening is important, but it's hard to find good tenants that pay rent on time. Uh, yes. I mean, finding a good tenant is not easy. It's hard. It's very, very hard. And depending on how desperate you are, sometimes it's just not worth the hassle of trying to rent a property, you know, with 6 months left to go, or whatever it is that's left. So, I mean, nobody wants to rent to bad tenants. Nobody wants to rent to tenants who just got evicted, tenants who give their landlords a hard time, tenants who just difficult people. Nobody wants to rent to those people, which means that the good people, there's more competition for them. So I would then suggest that you may want to consider stopping by another river, another stream, another lake where you can, try and go fishing over there. Oh, what go fishing? What am I talking about? I'm tired of evicting tenants and fixing up the property. So, what's it called? So, screening is very important. Sorry about that. I kind of got digressed, I suppose. What was I talking about? Screening is very important. It is because you don't want to get a bad tenant. And what I mean by a good tenant is a tenant that takes care of your property, pays the rent on time, easy to deal with, and hopefully is looking to stay a long time. It's going to depend on the quality of your property. It's going to depend on what kind of landlord you are, and also the neighborhood where the property is located. That could be one of those three. Could be the reasons why you're not getting any calls. But I think you need to investigate why you're not getting calls and address the issue head on. It could be the marketing; it's just not enticing, or maybe there's a lot of competition in your area where there is where you are. I'm not too sure. I think you have a 3-bedroom voucher. So maybe there's a glut of 3 bedrooms. I don't know, but you're not getting calls, which means that there's a disconnect between supply and demand. Okay, let's keep going. Dow 2, greetings from Phoenix. Thanks, Dr. Joe. Okay, I hope you're doing well, Dow 2. And let's go to this one. This is Ty O. Do you okay? So Ty asked, do you find that the rates for HELOCs and cash out refinances are higher for your investment properties than primary residences? Are there lenders who lend favorably on investment properties? Yes, generally, if it's an investment property, you tend to pay a higher interest rate. It could be 0.5% more, but generally there's a premium that's associated with investment property. The logic is that since you don't live there, it's if something goes wrong, you could just walk away and leave the bank exposed. So that's the reason why they increase the rent or interest rate, sorry, because it's added security for them. So do you find the rates? Yes, they are higher, and some lenders don't want to deal with investors, so they only want to deal with homeowners, or vice versa. So you have to sometimes go to the right, um, mortgage broker or mortgage lender, and sit down with them, explain your scenario, and they will then advise you whether they can possibly do this or whether they can't do this. So that's something to check out. And if you got some questions, again, put them in the chat box, and I'll get to them shortly. I hope you had a good week this week. It's been an interesting week for me. Things are going well. I helped one of the students find a tenant, and it looks like we're gonna get a really good tier 1 tenant, hopefully by Friday. And there's another property which will probably get done sometime next week. And also, it sounds like I think Nestor is looking as well for properties and for people. If you got any questions, put it in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up a little early today, 7:41. And I'm going to try and get early night tonight. And it's all good. So if you got some questions, put them in the chat box. And I'm going to get to them in a second. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up today. And, you know, and have me a little break and so on. Okay, with that said, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up today. I hope that today was a good session for you, that you learned something in terms of tapping into equity, cashing out, and building your portfolio. It's not always easy. It's scary, you know, but there's a right way, there's a wrong way of doing this. And my goal was to share with you what I would do and provide some background information for you. So with that said and done, my friends, I'm going to see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Have yourself a wonderful evening and take care. Bye for now.